Hey everybody, welcome to our webinar day, How to Crush Email in 2017. I am Mike Vardy of Productivityist. I'm glad you joined us. Sorry for a little bit of the delay. This blasted microphone of mine, the podcasting microphone, there's something going on with it. So there were some issues with static, and we were trying to isolate it. So that's why I'm on my good old fancy iPhone headphones. So I appreciate your patience, and we're going to get into How to Crush Email in 2017 with my friend Dimitri from SaneBox. Dimitri, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So why don't you share a little bit about, as we first off, people that are joining us, that there's the chat area where you can ask questions, and we've got Thomas here as well, and Thomas is going to kind of be handling questions as we go throughout the webinar here, but we will be answering some Q&A at the end. We want to respect your time, so we're not going to go too far past the hour-long mark because we want to make sure that you get what you need, and then you get the heck out of here and back to work. That's the goal. So you can start crushing your email right away. And in terms of questions, let's find out where everybody's from. We're seeing people are from Sweden, Matthias, Tulsa. We've got Iowa, Pennsylvania, Vermont. I guess I'm the only Canadian here right now. So we've got Toronto there. Ed, nice. Great. And I know Ed had a great question, and I actually mentioned it to you, Dimitri. Remember I talked to you about that question. So yeah. We might, Ed, I definitely want you to throw that out there during the Q&A session, and maybe you'll hear right from Dimitri whether that's been something that we've been able to sort out or whatever. But we got Vancouver, Jordan. Thanks for joining us. Minneapolis. The audio has ended. That's strange. Is everyone hearing the audio okay? No, the audio is. Oh, it's back up. Okay, thanks, Victoria. We've got Minneapolis, the UK, Montreal. Again, another one from Minneapolis. Great stuff. So, Dimitri, while I'm seeing people introduce themselves, and why don't you do a little bit of an introduction yourself for people who don't know you and how you got in? I know you've been on the podcast before, but let's dive into what we've got here, and maybe I'll just hand you the reins at this point, and I'll kind of chime in. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Works for me? Okay. Sure. We're going to get right into it. I'm going to step back. You're not going to see my face for a little while. Dimitri's going to start taking the keys, taking the control, and you'll probably hear me every once in a while chime in, and then we'll come back in near the tail end and do some Q&A. But let's just get started. I think this is the best way to go. So, Dimitri, over to you.
Let's do it. So I'm Dimitri. So yeah, I was the only non-engineer on the SaneBox team for the first couple of years, and so we've been doing this now this is our 7th year since we started the company. And the reason I'm here talking to you guys is since we built the product, the reason we started the company and decided to build the product the way we have is the email overload just keeps getting worse. Even 7 years ago, it wasn't as bad as it is today. But so we decided to build kind of a set of tools that would make managing your inbox much easier for professionals. As part of it, we realized pretty soon that just having the right tools is not enough. You really need the right mindset, the right process, the right system. And as part of that, we interviewed hundreds of people. We looked at the mountains of data. And so what we noticed is there are some kind of best practices, particularly among people who get a ton of, like very public people who get a ton of email, like 1,000 emails a day. And they consistently get to inbox 0 every day. And so we try to figure out, like, what do they do differently? And so we came up with a set of kind of best practices and processes to get, to help anyone get there. And so that's kind of the purpose of the presentation. So we'll dive right in. And Mike, by the way, if you have any questions, please just, let's keep it a free-flowing dialogue.
Yeah, I'm here, and I will have some questions. I'm still fairly new to SaneBox. For those of you who've been getting the emails and seeing me talk about it, there's a blog post. I just started scratching the surface of what SaneBox can do, so I will have some questions as we go throughout. So don't worry, I'll keep you on your toes.
Nice. Sounds good. And guys, we're recording this webinar, and we're going to send out a link to the video and everything else. And also, if you stay to the end, even if you don't, we'll follow up with an email with a link, kind of a discount link to sign up for SaneBox and get a free credit. So before digging into the details, I wanted to talk about kind of the bigger picture here for a second. And so one of the things that's fascinated me personally for a while is this idea of flow. And I think there are different ways to define it. And one of the ways is kind of single tasking, being in the now, being present. And getting into that state is difficult. And there are 4 kinds of triggers. So there are 17 total kind of triggers that create this seamless flow state where kind of everything is working. And really, the best way to describe it, it's a state where you don't have to think about anything. Stuff just kind of like happens magically. And so the single tasking is really like #1 thing here. I think I myself am very guilty of trying to multitask and failing at that, just like everyone else. And there's a lot of things that need to happen in order for you individually and as an organization to get into this flow state. And so the stuff that we're talking about here today is all really meant to do that, and is to kind of to reduce the cognitive load that managing an inbox has on you, and helping you kind of get to this productive, creative state. So why is this such a big problem? An average desk job professional, which is basically everybody nowadays, right, gets 147 messages a day and spend 2.5 hours on a day on email. And this isn't like proactively sending emails. This is just reactively dealing with your inbox. And the crazy thing about this is, if you think back 15 years ago, email wasn't really, it was kept around, but it wasn't really as big of a time suck as it's become. And if you think back 25 years, certainly there was no email. And the crazy thing is, within the last few years, email rose from 0% of your day to 30% of your day. And the crazy thing here is, if you look at your job description, answering emails is nowhere on it, right? Unless you're doing customer support, email is not in your job description. Yet it has become kind of like this default nagging thing that everyone has to deal with. And so it dictates our mood, it steals our focus, and it's become our to-do list. And so what we'll talk about today, and we'll have some strategies and kind of short tips to help you take control. The big issue with this is email is distracting, right? And there's been some research done on why that's the case. And so as part of this, one thing I really like is there was a study on poor rats, and there were 2 groups of rats. And so what they did is there was one group of rats who, by pressing a lever 10 times, would get a treat, a piece of cheese. They would press it 10 times. Some rats would press it 20 times, 100 times, whatever the number is. It was a consistent reward. So you do something X times, you get a Y reward. Then there was another group of rats who had basically a random reward system. So like they would press the lever, and sometimes it would take 1 push, sometimes it would take 10. And so what they found is the rats that were in this variable reward system, the random rewards, were way more addicted to pressing the lever. And so that our brain has this trigger. Checking your email feels really, really good, right? It feels like you're doing something productive. You might have an interesting email that's going to be make your life better, or not. So that's really the reason why this is these random intervals around email are such a big thing. And then the other issue here is the completion bias. So by deleting emails out of your inbox or processing them, it feels constructive, right? It feels like you're doing something. But in reality, you're really not working towards any of your long-term goals. In fact, you're like doing really unimportant stuff. So this is just some signs behind why we're so addicted to this.
And Dimitri, yeah. One thing I just want to chime in is that there's that dopamine hit that you get.
Exactly. Yes.
Right? It's that short term, and it feels good. It's like, it's the same reason why we struggle with exercise programs and diet, because, sometimes it feels good to get that sugar hit or that snack food, but you forget about the long-term goal of getting in shape or being healthy. So it's really weird that there's that that kind of connection that can happen when it comes to email, because and that's why that idea of inbox zero is it's a good idea in some respects, but if that's all you're focusing on, then all you're getting is like, oh, I got 180 emails taken care of today. Yeah, but what else did you do? Did you work on that book? Did you file that report? Well, yeah, but no, I got 180 emails done. There's a quantification. There's that little dopamine hit you get. So I just find that fascinating, and like you said, there's that short term versus that long term, and it's something that we don't keep in mind often enough.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why it's become a third of our time spent on this like really low value reactive activity, right? Well, and then and the real issue, and again, I think all of us are guilty of this to some extent, is it's this kind of this multitasking thing. Like you're working and then you check your email, right? And what this does is again, there's a ton of studies on this. You literally take off 10 points off of your IQ when you're doing this. So it's just a terrible, terrible practice. It needs to end, and so I think all of us here need to at least end it in our lives, and please spread the word, because it's people you work with, everybody is suffering from this. It's crazy. All right, so without, I think that was just some brief history and science. So here are the three, we call it the 3 email commandments, and so these are kind of the overarching best practices that we found really make a difference. So the first one is email is like a game of Tetris. No matter how good you are at playing the game, more rows of Tetris and more emails keep coming. Right? So if you get to inbox zero in the evening, you wake up in the morning, you're back at 200. And every year the volume of emails increases. The amount of emails just keeps rising about 7% a year. And so it really is like Tetris. It's speeding up over time. And so eventually, if today you're spending 2.5 hours a day, next year it's going to be 7% more, and then 7% more, and 7% more. So you will never win this game. And really, what you have to do is change the way you think about it. You need a system, you need a process, and you need tools to do this. And I think the most important, if you take away anything out of this, and Mike, I know you've talked about this as well before, this is the biggest takeaway, and it's probably the hardest thing to do, but it's the most important one. Email has become kind of this default #1 priority for us. You wake up in the morning and you check your phone. You get to the office, you open up your laptop, and you start answering emails. And the next thing you know, it's lunchtime. And all you really did is you responded to a bunch of people who put stuff on your to-do list. So your inbox is basically a to-do list that other people add on.
Yeah, I've said before to people that when you check email first thing in the morning, what you're saying is, what I had in mind for today it pales in comparison to what other people have in mind for me today. And it's easier for a lot of people because that dopamine that we talked about a little bit earlier, but it's also easier because the hard stuff that you plan for the day, that you've taken a look at your broad spectrum of what's on your to-do list, that's staring at you in the face versus this thing like, hey, could you go pick up some coffee cups from Costco? Oh, I could do that. That's easy. So it becomes, like you said, that default top priority. What I love is that what you're doing here is you're offering these solutions that you can use no matter what email app you're using. So let's get into those.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so we call it the scan, block, ask system. So when it's okay to wake up and look at your phone. It's okay to get in the office and look at your computer, but you have to really consciously, I think consciously is being the key word here, fish out the real fires, like the important, urgent things that need to be dealt with right now, right? It's not a lot of things. It's very few usually. So once you deal with those, then close down your whatever email app you're using. And the way I deal with it is I have an appointment at 11 o'clock every day called email time. And so I just start processing my emails during that time. And then another awareness, conscious thing is if you ever catch yourself doing email, just ask yourself, is this the best use of my time right now? Most of the time, the answer is probably no. Sometimes it will need to be the top priority, but the key is it needs to be conscious. It should not be your default #1 priority. And then lastly, so when you are in that email time kind of processing email um, zone, it's important to realize that not all emails are created equal. And this is really what we build our product around. And the problem is that every single email client or webmail gives the same amount of space, real estate, to every email, right? And so subconsciously for your brain, a newsletter feels the same way as an email from your most important client, right? Yes, once you think about it, it's very straightforward, but it's for your brain to process that is actually very cognitively expensive. And so it's important to understand that there are three kinds of emails. There's unimportant stuff, important, urgent, and then not important, urgent. And if, for you 2x2 matrix fans, you can break up the unimportant into the urgent, not urgent as well. But really, I think I like to simplify it. And so there's unimportant stuff, and then there's the important, urgent, which you need to deal with right now, and the important, not urgent, which you should deal with later.
So, Dimitri, when it comes to the unimportant stuff, for people who are familiar with the Eisenhower matrix or the Covey matrix or whatever they want to call them, you've taken one of the quadrants out, which is the delegate option, right? Which is the that could, I think, some of those, from what I can see here, is some of those might fall into, they're obviously the unimportant because it's not something for you to deal with, right? You could delegate it. But when it comes to email, as you and I both know, more often than not, the stuff that's being sent to you has already been delegated to you in some way, shape, or form or another, right? So I could see why this three-pronged system doesn't really allow for that delegation component that, it's important. What is it? And I can't remember right now. I'm blanking on what that third quadrant would be, other than just calling it delegate. Yeah, I know you're thinking too. You looked up at this. But I think that keeping that third bucket empty is if you're a traditional Eisenhower matrix user, you could literally do this with anything. But with email, if you were just sat back and said, okay, if you assessed your inbox just now, today, you just took today's stuff and you just took a moment and said, okay, what's urgent, what's important, you could see that you're probably answering so many emails that you don't need to deal with, or you're getting emails and seeing emails that you don't need to see. And that's, again, what I think is what steals our time, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, originally I had the four buckets here, but really, in the case of email, it just works out in a way that the unimportant stuff is really one bucket, and the stuff that should be delegated is really kind of important, right? And so the key here is all of this. The unimportant stuff is basically noise. Right? It's stuff that you just don't need to waste your time on. And so this delete or archive in bulk being the keyword, is really kind of the action that should be taken out.
Excellent. So what do we got next? There it is. I talked about it a little bit earlier.
Well, and I think I don't know if it makes sense to dig in too deep, since I'm sure you're everyone on this in the session is aware of Inbox Zero to some extent. Do you think it'd be interesting to talk about the history of this at all?
I think absolutely. I think because a lot of people are probably wondering, how did that term come? Because it's become part of the zeitgeist, especially in the productivity zeitgeist, a lot. But most people don't even know really what it means versus what. There's been so many interpretations of it. So yeah, I'd love for you to dive into this.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little gruesome, so I just want to warn you.
So it's not that early in the morning. Go ahead.
It came from the idea of triage, and triage was developed by one of Napoleon's surgeons, and basically, it's a process that's used in hospitals today, and it's used, in productivity and everything really, and that's where the three buckets kind of come into play. In the Napoleon's in the field, when the wounded soldiers came in to see the doctor, they would put them into three groups: those that are likely to live, regardless of what happens; those that are likely to die, regardless of what happens; and those that really need help. And if we spend time helping them, it will make a huge difference. And so. People that are likely to live, maybe they got a band, I don't think they had Band-Aids back then. They got quickly stitched up and, set on their way. those who were likely to die, they're given morphine and kind of made sure they're comfortable. And that allowed the surgeons to spend the bulk of their time really focusing on kind of what they do best. Interesting historical tidbit, in Napoleon's army, when they developed this process, they would treat everybody the same way. So they would put, whether you're a general, whether you're a soldier, or whether you're an enemy soldier, they still kind of treated everybody equally, which I thought was interesting. Okay, so moving into how does this tie in with Inbox Zero? So there are three kinds of emails. Noise, which we talked about before, so just unimportant stuff needs to be killed, which basically means delete or archive inbox. There's the quick fix, the stuff you can quickly deal with, and delegate falls into that bucket. And then needs work. So this is stuff that you actually need to work on. So we kind of briefly touched on this. The first one is delete or archive. The quick fix, there are three actions: defer, delegate, or reply. So if this takes less than 2 minutes, just do that really quick. And then the last bucket is the do, so like actual work. So I'll just do a quick plug here for SaneBox. So we built our product with this philosophy in mind. And really the way it works is we connect to your mail server. So we work with any email provider, any client, any device. So whatever you use today to do your email, we automatically work with it as well. And so our bread and butter, the first feature that we built, is called Same Later. And the way it works is basically it's a folder that lives in your email called Same Later. By the way, and so once you sign up for SaneBox, you just go to sanebox.com and we'll send you a link to get a discount. And as soon as we connect, we start analyzing your inbox. We look at what emails do you open, what emails do you respond to, how quickly you open them, how quickly you respond, how often, how far back the relationship goes, and so on and so on and so on. And so based on this, we know what's important, what's not. We keep all of the important stuff in your inbox, and we move all of the noise into the later folder. And the way it works is if something's we don't mean to be, or we don't claim to be 100% accurate. That's very important to know. We probably start at 95% accuracy. We get much better over time, and so we get really close to 100% as you train us. And the way you train SaneBox is by literally just moving an email from one place to the other. So let's say this is not really an important email. I'm going to move it to Same Later, and all future emails from that sender go to Same Later. So now you've just trained us. And so really what I personally do is I go through this unimportant folder once a day, sometimes twice a day. And if something deserves a closer look, I can take a look. I can train it to my inbox by moving it there. And then I just hit select all and delete. So all of this noise that used to be in my inbox is now processed very quickly. If something is real noise, like really, really, really not important, let's say, I don't know what Kiwi is, so I'm just gonna not want to hear from them again. So the way it works is you can move this email into a folder called Same Black Hole. And if you move it into this folder, then all future emails from that sender go straight to trash. So it's like unsubscribing, but easier, faster, and safer. And safe. We'll talk about the safer bit later. And you can also customize. So here we made a family and friends kind of custom folder that you can start. Let's say if you want your spouse to go into family and friends, you just move it there, and then in the future it would skip your inbox and go straight there. So it's just a very simple way to kind of bucketize your focus.
You know what I love, Dimitri, about this. So when it comes, again, I'm fairly new to SaneBox. I've been using it for almost a year. I've just let it do automatically what it does. But the custom folder creation is something I've started to play with, and it's nice when you can say, okay, this is for, especially if you've got like one email account that you're using for both work and home, which I don't recommend, but some people do. It allows you to kind of separate the, okay, this is personal, this is work. But also, again, you can even segment it further, family, friends, et cetera, et cetera. I like the ability to create those custom ones because, like you said, the training starts to happen and it gets to understand, hey, what emails belong in here? And I know you're going to dive a little bit more into some of the advanced stuff,
Mhm.
but I do love. I mean, that's just having that. That's and I mean, some people call the same later like a second inbox. I don't look at it that way. I look at it as it's a segmented delivery list of what comes your way that, like you said, is noise. It's really just stuff that's like, hey, this we and initially Sanebox doesn't know. Like it'll know largely what belongs there, but you do have to spend some time. And I much rather spend the time in there saying, hey, this is not noise. This is something I need to see,
Exactly.
than scanning my inbox constantly, going, okay, well, what stands out versus what doesn't. It's almost like it separates it into that one pile, and then I can filter through that pile and find the gold, as opposed to having to pan it through everything all at once.
Exactly. So the bit of science there that I thought was interesting is so our brain is very good at pattern recognition. And so when you look at the sea of noise, right, like the noise, 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 it's very easy for us to spot something that's important just by glancing at the subject or the sender. And so it's very, very efficient way to kind of to deal with it. And so we highly recommend um, checking the send later folder, or we also send you a digest every day that kind of shows you everything we've done, and you can process those emails right from the digest. Um, so, so that's how we just dealt with the noise. So now if we look at our inbox, there are the four remaining kinds of emails. So there is the let's say an urgent email. I can deal with it right now. Just hit reply and deal with it. And the way it works is our most popular feature is called Sane Reminders. The way it works is pretty easy. So you just CC, or you can VCC one one week at sanebox.com, or it can be 3 days at sanebox.com, or it can be January 15, 8 a.m. at sanebox.com. And you send the email as you normally would, and if you don't get a response from that sender by that time, we'll send you a reminder to follow up. So it's like a really, really easy way to, it's like a light CRM right in your inbox.
And it's the interesting thing about that feature, which I've just started to play with, is I traditionally tell people, hey, if someone hasn't responded to you, create a task in your task manager to follow up with this person at that time. It eliminates that step. And I do think I mean, anyone who's been following me for a while knows you do not manage your tasks in your inbox. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, because email is a two-way street and you don't get the focus you need. But in a situation like this, where you're like, hey, I need to reply to this person. I want to make sure that they've seen it, or that I can follow up with them. This is a great way to do that, especially with the whole idea of saying, hey, I want to make sure they've seen it. That's the big thing here. Like, have they replied? Do I know? You have no idea what's going on there. You can't control somebody else's behavior. So therefore, this allows you to kind of step in, and it's a really quick thing to do, so that you don't have to, add more to your to-do list, because we already have enough to do. So let's let SaneBox do this kind of thing. So I see the real value there as well.
Yeah, and and this feature works great for replying, like so sending emails to customers. Also for delegating. So if you like, what I like to do is if I want to delegate something to somebody on the team, I can I would put this into CC. So I would put that address into the CC field, and that way they kind of it sets the expectation at as far as when I would like a response. And if it's a customer, right? If you don't want it to be known, then you put it in the CC.
That's slick. That's really slick. It's passive aggressive reminder.
Totally. Yes, very passive aggressive. Well, so
Very,
and then
very Canadian of you, Dimitri.
nice, nice. Well, I'm Russian, so we're passive aggressive too.
There you go.
So and then the only kind of other action that we left is the defer. So if an email is important but not urgent or not actionable right this moment, I can snooze it. And I can actually snooze it a couple different ways. I can drag it into a folder called tomorrow, or a folder called next week. You can customize on our dashboard. You can make basically as many custom folders as you want. So here we made one for 10 p.m. So at 10 p.m., this email will now pop back in my inbox. And my personal favorite hack is at the end of I get to inbox zero every day. The way I do it is I drag all of my emails into the tomorrow folder. So whatever I haven't finished at the end of the day, I move it into tomorrow, and I finish my day with 0 emails. And tomorrow morning, they will all pop back in my inbox. But it actually feels amazing. Try it.
So Dimitri, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not really a cheat either. As long as those are the emails that show up at the top of your inbox, though,
yes.
right? So So you're gonna see that's the one thing a lot of people when they create these like reminders and follow-ups, they want to make sure they're dealing first in, first out. So the tomorrow folder, basically, what it does is say, oh, this is stuff we've deferred. It's going to show up before all the other emails that are coming in on the actual day of tomorrow, right?
Exactly. Perfect. And you can customize a lot of different things here. So there's and such as, by the way, you can choose it to stay at the top of your inbox or at the bottom. So there's a lot of customization that you can do.
Awesome.
And basically, once you do this, the only emails left are the stuff that you will need to process like today, or not process, but rather deal with. Right. So I would call like these 4 buckets are processing, and the last bucket to do is actual work.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's that's in a nutshell. I think it's probably nothing terribly new. It's relatively. I think most of the folks on this call probably know the basics. But yeah, we really built our solution to fall in line with Inbox Zero best practices. But really, the main difference between us and I think any other apps out there is that we work anywhere you currently do your email. So we don't need you to install anything or really change how you or learn anything new. So that brings us to the last section, which is advanced email hacks. And so these are just kind of short. I'll try to go through them really quickly to leave some time for Q&A. But really quick tips you can start using now. So this is probably the most important one. Don't get hacked. So everybody at Sanebox uses 1Password. You can use LastPass, and there's a couple of other solutions. But yeah, having a unique and really hard to guess password is critical. So that leaves you with creating a password for your 1Password.
Yes. I'm a huge 1Password fan, by the way. Big.
It's amazing. And I have I use 1Password for everything, and I have another password for my email just in case, right? Because email everything is in your email. And the hack there that I personally really like is think of a phrase that you already know. It could be a song like this one, or it can be something you don't have to memorize. And then as you're saying the words, Billie Jean is not my lover, you just type the first letter of each word. And you get extra credit for using numbers. It's like claims that I am the one. One is a number. And so this creates a password you don't have to remember, but it is really, really hard to guess.
I've used anagrams before too. I've used anagrams. So I'll take like a common, like something that I know, and I'll find an anagram. And the nice thing about 1Password's master password is that you can put spaces in it. So you could actually, if you wanted to, you could literally, and I don't know how long what the limitation is, but you could even go as far as to type in Billie Jean is not my lover. And you could actually have a phrase. I just don't know what the limit is. I'd have to look into that. But I know that there is this whole like phrasing that people use, but you do want to make it difficult to guess from anyone else, but easy for you to remember. And the great thing about 1Password, as you know, is you just have to remember that 1Password, and then everything else is there. So you could have a really complicated Gmail password, a really complicated, Exchange password, and it wouldn't matter because as soon as you enter in your 1Password, you get to see everything.
Exactly. Yeah, and unique password for each service is really important, right? Yeah. I think now if you're a Yahoo user and you use the same password for everything, then each of your passwords has been compromised. Yeah,
on more than one occasion from the looks of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Terrible. or Altaba, I should say.
Yeah, that's right. They just got acquired. You're right. There's the acquisition going on.
Right. Okay, so this is probably the second most important one. Even a lot of our customers, we see this as well. People just use their inbox as an archive, and this is really the same as opening your physical snail mail box, taking out the envelopes, reading them, and then stuffing them back into your mailbox. Like that's basically what you're doing by leaving emails in your inbox. Terrible. Don't do it. If you have hundreds or thousands of emails in your inbox now, just create a new folder called Archive. Move all those emails there, right? And start fresh. Like that's really important.
There's another tip. My friend Cesar, who is a project management guy, and he says, and this isn't the first time I've heard it, but if you're feeling overwhelmed by your email already, and you've been using your inbox as an archive, and I know I've heard all the excuses. Well, no, only I just changed the filter so I see just unread. It doesn't matter. When you open up your email, by default, you see everything. The inbox by default is everything that's in it. If you're at that point, create like you said, create a folder called Archive, or create one called Email Bankruptcy. Like call it like that, and then you know that because you could go and look at, like, that's where all the old ones live before you made because I archive every email anyways, but it goes into Archive, like the actual archive folder that Gmail has. Right. So that Email Bankruptcy is kind of like and also you get a waypoint of when you realized you had a problem. Hey, when was the last email that was in that bankruptcy? Oh, look, I've been good with email for X number of months. So, but don't get caught in this, but I star all the emails that I need to deal with, so I just look at the starred ones, or so everything stays in my inbox. And there's that, we've heard there's been studies, quote unquote, or features that say, well, if you have too many folders, then it's harder for your search to work. Then the key is, if you've got your folders and you know what's inside those folders, if they're labeled correctly, you just search within those folders. So you don't have that problem. Whereas if you're spending time looking through your email inbox, you are spending more time exploring and less time executing. So this is a big tip that I throw out a lot, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Dimitri.
Nice. All right. So now we talked about the black hole earlier, and the reason we built that feature is we hear this, and tell me if you've heard the same stories. When people go on an unsubscribe binge and just unsubscribe from everything, and then end up with more junk. The reason that's happening is when you're unsubscribing from somebody with a questionable integrity, you're exposing yourself as a real human who, on top of that, cares about their inbox. And so they can sell your email to other email lists. There's all kinds of things that can happen. Again, it doesn't happen with every email you're unsubscribing from, but it happens a lot. And so that's why we built the same black hole, which is basically it's like effectively unsubscribing. You'll never see those emails again, but they're going to go into your trash immediately. So it's easier and safer.
Yeah, remember it happened recently, the calendar invites for Apple, where people were getting spam invites in their calendar, and people were declining the events, and Apple sent out a message saying, don't do that, because when you decline it, you're showing interaction, and that's how spam gets proliferated. So yeah, the black hole, I've been using that more and more because it's just, and it's funny because I've used a service like Unroll.me before, .me, and I still have it on a couple of my email accounts. But I like the fact that with the black hole is that I'm like, okay, you know what? This launch promotion is done, or this thing is done. I don't want to go to the unsubscribe area. I want to just go and get it out of my face and never see it again. And honestly, this time of year, we're in January right now, this is when everyone starts revitalizing their email lists. Have you noticed this, Dimitri, where it's like, oh, I haven't done email in a long time, and you get the first Happy New Year message from some software company that you bought software from 3 years ago. You're like, what? Oh, wait, never mind. Like I got a message from Bell Canada, which is a telephone company up here, and it was like, I think that the last time they sent me an email was 3 years ago, and now I'm getting one like every week, and I'm like,
oh, God.
First off, I'm not a customer. Secondly, so I just dragged it to the same black hole. It's done, dealt with, finished.
The thing that drives me nuts the most is the happy holidays greetings. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need congratulations, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's not so much the happy holidays emails that are coming from people that you know. It's
Oh
from the
yeah,
ones that are like out of they're like, where have you been for the last,
yeah.
year? It's Christmas if you send me an actual Christmas card if you're that because that'll have a lot more impact than you polluting my inbox. But let's move on.
Exactly. But so this is an easy one. Email is great for closed-ended questions. Not so great with open-ended questions. So like trying to kind of put a clear call to action with specific questions that ideally is a yes or no or multiple choice is perfect. Anything else can just starts a thread, and it's probably easier to pick up the phone and call the person. And then this is the kind of the last one. Or not kind of, this is the last one. And it's not really even a tip. It's more of an observation. So we've found that some of these people, that I mentioned this earlier, who get like thousands of emails per day, also consistently get to inbox zero and respond to every email, which is just not sure if their priority is in the right place, but for them, if you're a VC and you want to be known as somebody who replies to people, there's one of our customers comes to mind. He literally replies to every email, and it's remarkable. And so the reason they're able to do this is they think about email the right way. They have the right system, the right tools, and they have a process, consistent, disciplined process that allows them to do this. And so if they can do it, so can all of us, right? If you only get a couple hundred emails, you can definitely get to inbox zero. But again, you need to change the way you think about it. Back to the whole Tetris thing. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful. So there's some bigger picture things, and hopefully some short actionable tips you can take away as well.
Awesome. Let me turn my camera on so I can get back in here. There we go. Hi, everybody. In case you joined in late, you're like, where's Mike? I'm right here. I've been here the whole time. And so this has been awesome. We've got some Q&A. Is Thomas able to jump in and jump on the mic? Thomas?
Yeah, I'm right here. Can you guys hear me?
Awesome. Yes, I can hear you. So we've got some questions. I don't know if there's any that you kind of, I know there are people asking questions throughout the course of the webinar, but if you have any in specific that you want to shine a spotlight on, maybe we can deal with them, both with relations to what SaneBox can do as well as what you might be able to do just before you even get started with SaneBox. Because like I said, I'm still just scratching the surface with it, and there's stuff I'm going to take away from here that I'm going to go start doing right away, like the reminders I don't use often enough. I should probably use them.
Oh yeah, it's our most popular feature.
Definitely reminders. I mean, for me, like my role in SaneBox, I'm in business development and operations, and with reminders, my email reply rate percentage is like 90+.
It's good to know.
Yeah, so with reminders, everything stays in the loop. For me, like the ones I love most are 2 days at sanebox.com, or 3 days and also 1 week. So I typically use those three the most.
Mm-hmm.
You also use like every dot, and then you can put the day of the week, so to set up recurring reminders as well. So that's a great way to kind of like quickly kind of push things out. There's other tools out there that you can click on the reminder button, but SaneBox, we really drive to be productive. So you could just hit tab on the keyboard, and essentially if you have it auto-filled, it pops in really quickly. So from a workflow perspective, your hands never leave the keyboard.
I'm a big believer in, if you've got a tool, and I've talked about this with Evernote and other tools before, if you've got a tool that can handle all of the things you need it to handle well, stick with that tool and don't diversify yourself too much, because there's so many things out there, and at this time of year you're getting hit with any time of year really, but you're getting hit with oh, here's this new thing, and there's this new thing you should try, and all this. It's like, look, I'll allude to a guy who definitely doesn't get interrupted a lot, Cal Newport, my friend Cal Newport, who wrote the book Deep Work. It's like, if you can get really good, deliberate practice at using a tool and make it really work for you and personalize it, and I'm all about personal productivity, then you should. And I know that SaneBox has, I've just scratched the surface, but I know that there's a lot there that I could do. What other questions do we have, Thomas, that maybe we want to shine a spotlight on?
Cool. So one of the questions is, a lot of people are asking regarding custom features, custom folders. So you can make up to 6 custom folders on any Sandbox account. That's just one thing that we do have. Obviously, that depending on what plan you have. But with a 14-day trial, we let you try everything. You can enable as many as you want. Everything's unlimited, and then from there you kind of just pick what works best for you.
And really quick, Thomas, let me jump in. The reason we allow up to 6 custom folders is we've noticed when some people kind of go a little crazy and make too many folders, and then the problem of you really have to look into them, right? Stuff goes into those folders, so if you're not disciplined about checking them, like you're going to miss stuff.
Does it interfere with existing folders? In other words, a question they're saying, like any existing folders that you have, I don't see that as being an issue at all. They're completely separate.
No, it's totally separate. So we only process stuff that comes in your inbox. So if you have a preset filter, like server-side filters, whether Gmail or Outlook, if it's a filtering rule, that it will still work, and we would not interfere with it in any way.
And there's a lot of, I mean, I know David Moore was talking about this. He's obviously a Gmail power user or an Outlook power user because he's got like filters and stuff set up. I'll address that really quickly. I'm not. I have filters. I had some filters set up in the past. Filters, in my mind, can break because in some respects. So not all the time, but sometimes. Especially, and I allude this to when I was using automation tools like IFTTT and Zapier, where things change and all of a sudden this doesn't work anymore, or you have to re-authenticate. So I'm a little hesitant to use it, but also not everybody has the time or wherewithal to say, okay, let me figure out how I want this to be filtered. Let me figure out what I should use as a filter. Let me figure out what this star means versus what this orange star versus this green star. So while using a tool like Sanebox, which again, it's not going to be for everybody. It could be, but you may already have a bunch of filters and Gmail stuff set up. And I know, David, you said I love the tip about the BCCing that you use and the CCing, the passive aggressive thing that we were talking about, Dimitri. You love that tip. But if you've already got a good Gmail, I mean, Sanebox can augment it if you'd like it to, especially with the idea of the sane black hole and stuff like that. But not everybody's going to have that Gmail power user mentality or that power user acumen at their fingertips. So Sanebox eliminates that from the get-go, and then you can focus on the work that really actually, in my mind, the work that you need to focus on.
Exactly.
What else do we have? Thomas, is there any other ones in there that we haven't really addressed yet? We've got about 8 minutes before we want to wrap up.
Okay, cool. So some people are asking regarding same black hole. Is that more of like a spam filter? And some people are using Unroll Me as well, and just like Sanebox. So we recommend just kind of sticking with one, obviously, and also to Sanebox. For same black hole, the feature is pretty much to unsubscribe from people you don't want to hear from again. It's not so much a spam filtering tool, and there's a key difference in that, just because the way spam emails are set up are different than, let's say, a marketer's email is set up. So therefore, it would kind of mess up the training. And sometimes, like, people do say that they actually end up getting more because of this, they're training spam to trash. So that's not something to kind of differentiate. It's not a spam defender tool.
And Michelle Gunn, by the way, Michelle, great to see you. It's been a while. She's a productivity powerhouse. And she was actually talking about how she was using Sane Black Hole for all her spam, but after she ended up with a ton of stuff in there. And Stuart reached out and said, look, why don't you just delete them from Sane Later instead? Which is what you showed, Dimitri. You said, hey, anything I don't want, I'm just going to delete from Sane Later. It's because what was happening is those glut of emails in Black Hole were actually slowing things down. So go ahead, Dimitri.
No, I was going to say, Michelle, if you could type, what do you use for your spam? Like, is it on Gmail? Is it Gmail has a pretty good spam filter. Nothing yet. Sanebox isn't. We do
regular. She's got regular mail on Mac. But what server do you use? Is it Gmail? So is that fine? Is that all you need to know, Dimitri?
Yeah, I mean,
you probably need to know. You need to know whether you're using Google Mail or Exchange,
provider,
something like that. Yeah, the provider.
It sounds like maybe it's like a home. If it's a home Exchange server. Yeah. So if you're an exchange and it's a personal account, you're gonna, we recommend getting a real spam tool. So we actually have a spam filter, like an actual spam filter, that if you reach out to our support team, we'll turn it on for you. We haven't publicly launched it because it's not as good as like a robust real spam filter. But if you don't have anything else, it's a great option.
Okay.
So that will test.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And Ed had a question. Remember, we were going to talk about that question that I mentioned to you yesterday. Ed was the one that had the question. And if I remember correctly, Ed, why don't you, you could throw it in the chat, but I'm going to try to paraphrase it. So anything that he sent to the black hole, I know I sent this to you, Dimitri, was showing up as Outlook as when he was doing a search, it would show up it's like a strike through. So it would still show up in the search results. Remember I mentioned that to you?
Yeah. Ed, if you don't mind, reach out to our support team. This should not be happening. So there's something off, and we've gotten very good at fixing things like this.
See, so I'm glad you showed up to the webinar, Ed, and I'm glad you asked the question because you got what you needed, and hopefully you'll get more of what. Now, Chase has asked some questions too, right? Chase, it's great to see you in here. Chase is a Patreon supporter of the podcast as well, so awesome, thanks. So. One thing he's concerned about, and I'll just jump in here, Thomas, to address this, because this is something that I'm actually wondering about, is how do you pin the folders in an iMac client? So, for example, if you want to make sure that those folders are kind of the ones that you see first and foremost versus what Gmail dictates. I think that has a lot to do with alphabetization, though, doesn't it? It's like how Gmail sorts it. Like with my 3Mail workflow, I actually had to have an asterisk or a number put in front of it so that it would show up in the order that it wants. So you may have to do that, but is there any other advice you can offer? I don't know if you're seeing that question right now, Dimitri or Thomas.
Yeah.
But...
Thank you. No, I just read it as well. So you're absolutely right. It's a matter of naming it. And so the way we do it in SaneBox, you can rename any of our folders to whatever you want. Just go into Gmail or whatever client you're using and just change it the way you normally would change a folder. We would notice, we would connect the dots. So by default, we're adding an @ or a plus, depending on what service you use. We add a symbol to make sure it's at the top, but you can also rename it to something else to make sure it's at the top.
And David's saying that in the chat, so this might be worth a try. I haven't tried this myself. I probably should. Is you can actually click on edit and move them. I don't know. I haven't tried it, so I'm gonna give it a go. But I know that when I was trying to develop my 3Mail workflow, which for those of you who have followed me for a while, it's basically, hey, you've got your inbox. It's very similar to what you do with the Tomorrow thing, Dimitri. But instead, I look at it and say, when am I going to actually deal with this email? Next Monday, like today. Tuesday, today, Wednesday, Thursday, and you drag it to the appropriate folder, which you could emulate in SaneBox for sure. But I had to put numbers in front of it so that they would show up in the right order. For me, honestly, I guess the editing might be a customization thing, whereas renaming them or naming them a certain way is the quickest way to do it. Maybe that's the way to look at it. But I'll take a look and see if I can make that work. iOS or Mac clients, that works, but maybe not on Windows too. That's another thing David said. What else do we have, Thomas, before we wrap? We only got a couple minutes left, so do we want to take maybe one more question?
Sure. I think one more asked, started a trial back in March, but they didn't end up subscribing. Can they get the discount code again? Yes. If you're already using SaneBox and you attended the webinar, just email support@sanebox.com and we'll honor the credit. New attendees as well. We'll send out an email recap and everything. Everyone will get the links and everything like that, so you guys can sign up if you guys are interested. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
So do we have a link or anything we're going to throw in here so people just need to, if they want to take advantage of this trial offer, what do we have, Dimitri, before we wrap up? So it's just, how do they do that?
Yeah, I'm going to send it right now.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I think that's it. I don't know if we have anything else we want to address. I know anyone who wasn't able to attend live is going to get a copy of this. We're going to send it out to all the attendees, all the people who were here. It's recorded. We had a really good turnout. I'm really happy with the way things went today. I learned quite a bit about some of the aspects of SaneBox I'm going to want to use, but I also we reinforced some of the email tactics that I've talked about online that you've read about. I know someone asked about stats with relating to how much time is being wasted via email. I think it was Lori. Lori, if you email me at askmike@productivityist.com, I'll find those. There's so many different articles about there that have been probably highlighted in Psychology Today and then moved over to Forbes and to Inc. to Fastco. Like, they're all over the place. So if you email me at askmike@productivityist.com, I can send you that data because I've done a bunch of research on it as well. But Dimitri and Thomas, thanks for fielding questions throughout and being in the background. Really appreciate it. Dimitri, thanks so much for taking the time and share stuff with my audience today.
Thank you for having me. I guess thank you for all the questions. It's really great.
A lot of great stuff here. That's it for, there you go. You're going to move, and people are moving up to dinner from the different, because and I love the names of the different pricing models, by the way. What is it? Snack, lunch, and dinner, right?
Yeah.
So they're moving up to dinner. That's awesome. There's going to be more features to come. Chase, that's awesome. Michelle, thanks for joining us. Everybody that's in the webinar, thanks for joining us today. Thanks to all of you who are watching that weren't able to attend live. And I will see you next time. Until then, remember to stop guessing and start going. Take care, everybody.